Okay, this is pretty huge news. One of the most secretive arms of the DoD, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, has just revealed its plans to field a fully reusable hypersonic bomber for the future of American airstrike operations in highly contested environments. Now, this isn't the first time we've talked about hypersonic aircraft on this channel, and it certainly won't be the last. So let's dive right into the Air Force's next RS hypersonic bomber concept and what it could mean for the future of air warfare. I'm Alex Hollings, and this is Air Power. Big thanks to today's sponsor, MyHeritage, an incredible website and service that helps you uncover stories about who you are, connect with your roots, and find a deeper sense of belonging within your family line. Now, my dad passed away a few years ago now, and like a lot of veterans, I didn't always have the best relationship with him. We found a lot of common ground before he passed, and I miss him every day, but one thing we never spent much time discussing was our family tree. In fact, I haven't even met many members of my extended family at all, and that never bothered me much until I became a dad myself, and I realized that I don't know much about our family to tell my kid. And that's why I was really excited to try MyHeritage. You start by building your family tree with your siblings, parents, and grandparents, and then let MyHeritage help you by searching through more than 33 billion historical documents to find records of your family members to connect you with. You can even add entire branches to your family tree instantly with MyHeritage's Instant Discoveries feature. Heck, you might even find relatives you didn't even know you had, thanks to its ability to quickly search and match historical records tied to family members that you've listed. But MyHeritage isn't just about finding records and dates, it's about finding where you really belong and celebrating the familial journey that ultimately led to you, and if you're lucky enough to be a parent like me, to the little ones who remind you of just how important family really is. I can even use MyHeritage's AI photo tools to bring old pictures of my dad to life for my daughter to see. If you want to get in on the fun and find out just how deep the roots to your family tree go, MyHeritage is giving our viewers a great deal. Just follow the link in the description below to get started with a 14-day free trial. And I'm confident you'll want to stick around after those 2 weeks are up.
Go to myheritage.com to build your own family tree.
Again, just follow that link in the description below to dive into your own history with a 14-day free trial and all the incredible tools that MyHeritage has to offer. Alright, now let's dive back into DARPA's recently announced plans to field a hypersonic bomber. This program, called Next Generation Responsive Strike, or NextRS, aims to field what the Air Force calls a Y-plane. Now, X-planes, which you may have heard of, are experimental aircraft meant to demonstrate new technologies that could later be folded into production designs. Y-planes, on the other hand, are meant to serve as pre-production prototypes that could feasibly be put right into production with minimal modifications. Now this, it's worth pointing out, could point toward the possibility of there already being an X-plane that has demonstrated these technologies, a platform like the highly secretive SR-72, but DARPA declined to comment on that possibility when pressed by Aviation Week's Steve Trimble. Now, according to reports, this platform would be powered by at least one turbine-based combined-cycle air-breathing jet engine, which we've discussed on this channel lots of times in the past is really the only viable way to field such an aircraft. These exotic power plants can really be thought of as two types of air-breathing jet engines mashed together, with a traditional turbofan, like you'd find in today's fighters or bombers, married up to an engine that's capable of sustaining much higher speeds, like a supersonic combustion ramjet, also called a scramjet. Now that would allow the aircraft to take off and land under turbofan power, but cruise at speeds above Mach 5 under scramjet power. Now, DARPA's industry solicitation documents call for such an engine in the 30 to 38,000 pound thrust class, roughly comparable in power output to the Pratt & Whitney F-119 that powers the F-22 Raptor. But importantly, achieving and sustaining hypersonic speeds isn't just a measure of power output in your engines, but rather managing sustained combustion in an engine while air travels through it at supersonic speeds, something that no turbofan can currently do. Now, the SR-72, a Lockheed Martin announced successor to the legendary SR-71, was long billed as a hypersonic reconnaissance and strike platform, suggesting the ability to carry at least minimal air-to-ground payloads. But the use of the term bomber here implies the ability to carry larger payloads at strategically important ranges. According to the broad agency announcement released by DARPA for this next RS bomber program, the effort to field this new aircraft is focused around 6 areas of technological advancement. The first are structures and materials, and it makes good sense that this topic would be ranked number 1. Some of the biggest challenges associated with hypersonic flight are managing the immense amount of both heat and pressure sustained by objects traveling at speeds in excess of Mach 5. In fact, the hypersonic flight regime is scientifically defined as the speed in which an object is moving so fast that it changes the basic chemistry of the air it interacts with, which happens to occur at around Mach 5. The next RS hypersonic bomber will require materials that can regularly withstand temperatures in excess of 3,270 degrees Fahrenheit, or around 1,800 degrees Celsius. And importantly, they need to be exceedingly lightweight for high-speed aerospace applications. The next area of focus is, quote, high-speed weapons separation, which DARPA describes as technologies that allow weapons, weapon bays, and ejection systems to accommodate hypersonic separation from aircraft and fly out to the target. Now, Lockheed Martin successfully demonstrated its ability to launch air-to-air missiles at speeds above Mach 3 during testing of the SR-71's armed sibling, the YF-12. But the challenges of safe weapons release at nearly twice that speed or more are even more immense. Not only do you need to be able to open the weapon bay doors, meaning those surfaces may need to experience that immense heat and pressure from multiple angles, but you also have to prevent the 3,830 mile per hour winds from pushing that weapon straight back up into the weapons bay upon launch. Something that Lockheed overcame using thrusters mounted on a trapeze system that they used to drop their missiles. Now, we asked Dr. Chris Combs, a D. Howard endowed hypersonics professor and aerospace engineer at the University of Texas, San Antonio, about overcoming this challenge in an interview we did last year. Now, Dr. Combs had to be selective with his words to avoid violating non-disclosure agreements or operational security for the defense programs that he's a part of, but he seemed confident that this challenge has been or could be overcome. I'll quote Dr. Combs here. This is one I have to be careful about, but I think I'll keep it simple and say that there's definitely more than one way to deploy things at this speed that can work. And I think with materials that we have, if there's a will, there's a way to deploy a certain type of munition if you want to. It's just a matter of how much weight penalty you're willing to pay, how far you can get, and how fast you need to go after you drop them. Now, the next area of focus in DARPA's announcement is dual-mode propulsion, which DARPA describes as technologies that allow for continuous powered operation of a turbine-based combined cycle propulsion system over the entire flight envelope. This, of course, is what we've long described as the holy grail of hypersonic propulsion, and to date, there's solid evidence to believe that Lockheed Martin, along with Aerojet Rocketdyne, may have successfully ground-tested such a system in 2017. But to date, only one company has publicly demonstrated a functioning turbine-based combined cycle engine managing the transition from turbojet or turbofan to ramjet or scramjet power in a high-speed wind tunnel. And that is Hermeus, which we'll talk more about soon. Next on the list of necessary technologies for this hypersonic bomber is power generation, to be able to produce sufficient onboard power to manage a sophisticated suite of onboard avionics. And this, interestingly enough, is often not a question of engine power production so much as that engine's thermal management capabilities. Today's high-powered turbofan engines, like the F-135 that powers today's F-35s, are actually capable of producing more electrical energy than we allow, because the engine would burn so hot in doing so that it could potentially damage the fuselage of the aircraft. So, in order to produce a great deal of onboard electrical power, that turbine-based combined cycle engine will need to be particularly good at managing the heat it produces, something else that could benefit from advancements in high-temperature material sciences. And to this very point, the next technology listed by DARPA is, you guessed it, thermal management systems for both the aircraft and its propulsion systems. And finally, a quote, high Mach turbine engine is the last area of focus, and this speaks specifically to the challenges of bridging the velocity gap between the efficient speed ranges for turbofan engines and the efficient speed ranges for scramjets. Today's turbofan engines are largely limited to speeds of around Mach 2 to 2.5, depending on the design of their air inlet, whereas scramjets don't start functioning well until you're traveling above Mach 3. So you need either a high-speed turbofan or a lower-speed scramjet to bridge that velocity gap. Lockheed Martin reportedly accomplished this through the use of a dual-mode ramjet, which uses changing inlet geometry to shift the location and intensity of shock waves produced in that inlet to reduce the speed of inflowing air and provide compression. Now, this allows the same engine to serve as a lower-speed ramjet until you're flying fast enough to shift that inlet geometry and allow the air to begin flowing through the engine at supersonic speeds for scramjet functionality. Now, if you've been watching this channel for a while, then this isn't the first you've heard of American efforts to field reusable hypersonic aircraft. In fact, to date, there have been at least 3 publicly disclosed programs drawing funds from Pentagon coffers to do exactly that. The first, of course, was Lockheed Martin's SR-72 program, which began in secret all the way back in 2006 under the supervision of Lockheed Martin's hypersonics program manager, Brad Leland. This effort broke cover in 2013 when the firm announced that they'd made enough progress with the concept to be confident that they could field the aircraft if they could secure roughly $1 billion worth of additional funding. This aircraft was to be powered by a turbine-based combined cycle engine, starting with the Pratt & Whitney F-100 or the General Electric F-110 as its base, followed by a dual-mode scramjet capable of operating as either a ramjet, which slows incoming air to subsonic speeds, or a scramjet, which allows that air to flow through at supersonic speeds, which could be accomplished through shifting inlet geometry to create shock waves inside the engine to lower airspeeds to manageable levels while flying in that ramjet mode. By 2017, Lockheed Martin announced that their engine, co-developed with Aerojet Rocketdyne, had completed ground testing and was ready to fly. And not long after, Lockheed Martin executives made several statements suggesting a single-engine flying prototype may already be out there. But then, in early 2018, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced his nation was putting hypersonic missiles into service, marking the onset of what some now call a hypersonic arms race. And within literal days of that announcement, Lockheed Martin pulled all mentions of their SR-72 program off their website and stuck the program back in the shadows, potentially pointing toward a newfound and classified source of funding. Now, unconfirmed reports now suggest that a single-engine flight research vehicle, or FRV, does indeed exist from the SR-72 program and has been in the Air Force's hands since 2021 or maybe even earlier. And then, in 2022, the Air Force Research Lab awarded Leidos a $334 million developmental contract for what they called the Mayhem program, which, based on solicitation documents, was meant to serve as a reusable, potentially air-launched hypersonic platform capable of delivering ordnance or conducting ISR missions, short for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or spy plane duties, over far-flung targets. Again, powered by an advanced turbine-based combined cycle engine, if not a scramjet alone. Now, that program was largely shelved early last year. And then, of course, we have Hermeus, who've taken a slightly lower-tech approach to hypersonic aviation with their ongoing Quarter Horse program and, down the road, their Dark Horse military aircraft. Now, these aircraft are meant to be powered by a turbine-based combined cycle engine, but rather than using a scramjet, which would potentially be capable of speeds maybe even in excess of Mach 10, they intend to use a ramjet, which might limit their achievable speeds to Mach 6 or so, but makes combustion a much easier technical hurdle to overcome. Now, Hermeus has made big progress in recent years, and to date, they are the only company to publicly demonstrate their hypersonic engine's ability to transition from turbojet to ramjet power in a high-speed wind tunnel. Hermeus has already completed early taxi tests with their Quarter Horse Mark 0 technology demonstrator and is currently working up toward their first flight with Quarter Horse Mark 1 in the very near future. Now, in our past interviews with Hermeus co-founders Skylar Shuford and AJ Piplica, we learned that their Dark Horse military aircraft would likely be powered by 2 of their turbine-based combined cycle engines, which they call Chimera. And of course, GE Aerospace recently announced not only ongoing dual-mode scramjet efforts, but even a program that is incorporating rotating detonation combustion into their dual-mode scramjet, which could potentially allow for a significantly smaller turbine-based combined cycle engine that is far more efficient than today's turbofan engines, allowing for hypersonic performance without a big weight penalty. And all of these programs really demonstrate pretty conclusively that the US Air Force sees hypersonic flight as a viable path forward for American air power. And it's at least possible that aircraft demonstrating these complex and exotic hypersonic propulsion systems are already conducting test flights in the more secretive portions of America's Southwest. And if that is the case, well, then it makes good sense that DARPA would leapfrog past the X-plane stage and aim directly for an operational prototype, meant to put this maturing technology into practical use in a combat platform. A hypersonic bomber would offer the US several big strategic advantages over even its existing bomber fleets, the fastest of which is the soon-to-be retired B-1B Lancer with a top speed of Mach 1.2. And not long from now, after the Lancer's retirement, the US will have no supersonic bombers at all. High speeds not only make it more viable to overcome what defense analysts often call the tyranny of distance in a strategically viable time frame, or, in other words, putting warheads on foreheads while you still know exactly where your target is. And of course, such a bomber would pose the same challenges for air defenders as maneuvering hypersonic missiles do today, meaning they would be all but impossible to shoot down with existing air defense systems, thanks to the combination of Mach 5 plus speed and difficult to predict course changes. In other words, this new hypersonic bomber could defeat air defenses in much the same way the SR-71 once did, through a combination of speed, altitude, and tactics. Of course, this is all still the very early days of the next RS bomber program, but if DARPA wants to be squarely in the design stages of this aircraft within just the next 5 years, that speaks to a pretty rapid acquisition strategy that, in terms of aircraft acquisitions, is practically next week. So you'd better believe we'll be staying on top of this effort every step of the way. Before we close for the day, I just want to say thanks to MyHeritage one more time for sponsoring this video. Follow the link in the description below to dive right into your own history with a 14-day free trial and all the incredible tools that MyHeritage has to offer. And with that, ends this very short fused episode of Air Power from Sandboxx News. I'm Alex Hollings. Make sure to swing by sandboxnews.com today and every day for all the latest in news, entertainment, and motivation, and now, merch from all around the force. If you got anything out of today's video, make sure to click like and subscribe down below, and leave me a comment so I know what I should cover next. And of course, don't forget to tap on that bell icon so you never miss a drop from Sandboxx News.